Welcome back to the Dreamlet podcast. On this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about imaginary situations and what ifs surrounding the same theme of change. Right now, I have my friend with me. Her name is Aimee.
Hello.
Me and Aimee have been friends for a long time, and we also play D&D together, so this is going to be a very interesting episode where we get to exercise our imagination. First off, if you could go back right before high school, what would you change about your high school life? Like, what did you do during high school that you feel like you could have done better if you could go back in time?
I feel like I could have been more intentional about the activities that I devoted my time to. I feel like that's a little bit difficult to ask, especially from high school students, because they're so sort of like spontaneous, and like we shouldn't pit it on people that young to like know what they want to do and start building towards it by that point already.
That's true. But what would you do differently?
Does it only have to be things that I did do and wanted to do better, or things that I did not do?
Either way.
Okay, because I feel like most of my high school regrets would have been in stuff that I did not do. I think that a lot of it was rooted in not being confident enough, but I feel like I should have pushed myself more outside of my social comfort zone. Like, I would have interacted with more people, tried sports that I otherwise wouldn't have thought I could be good at. Kept reflecting back then, like especially when I started gymming, how I wish that in high school I started lifting weights already. Because you know how like a lot of the sports groups, like they're required to take weight class instead of like regular PE. I kind of wish I did that, so then from a young age I could develop good form. Because in high school I did go to the gym, but I wasted a lot of years without proper form, so I wouldn't get as much like muscle growth.
Yeah. That's pretty specific.
Yeah, you asked for specific.
Yeah. I guess to make the situation more fun, like I'm imagining a situation where like, okay, our brain gets transferred like back in time, like to right before high school. I think at this time, for me, it's weird to say, but like the first thing I would do is probably like. This is probably like messed up to say, but I'm just gonna say it because it was what
Expose yourself.
what I was thinking. But I'd probably like try not to like be with the same girlfriend I had at the time.
I could feel that coming.
You felt it coming
as you were building to that answer. I was like, oh, okay, I know exactly what I was gonna say.
Not because she's a bad person or anything, but because like I did it out of like, this was spoken about in the previous episode about like abandonment issues from like after the divorce of my parents, like my dad left. So a lot of it was like me just like using her as this emotional crutch for help. And I think that sort of made both of, or at least her high school like life not as good. So it's not really like because I disliked her or anything. It's more so like so I could fix a sort of like a wrong that I did.
Yeah.
So
it was like more for yourself than for like the betterment of the relationship itself, or like for her.
Yeah, well, for everyone's better. That's one very specific thing I would change that I was very hesitant to say.
Speak the truth. That's a good one.
I feel like a big part of our past deals with a lot of like relationships and friendships and how you would have done things differently if you could have gone back. Especially like now that we're adults and we're more mature, there's just so many things in my social life that I feel I could have done differently, including college. I feel like college, I didn't really meet as many people as I would have wanted. The dorms sort of made me somewhat of a recluse. I just like went to the dance studio, danced, went to classes, and went back to the dorm room, studied with my roommates for physics, and then that's most of what I did.
Wow, I'm actually really surprised at how similar our college experience was, because I was having a hard time speaking about high school, because honestly, I feel like high school was great. And, like, few bad things happened.
High school was good overall.
Yeah. Like I have very few regrets in high school, but when it came to college, yeah, I feel the exact same way. Because you would imagine like being put into a campus and living with a bunch of people our age, like we'd meet a bunch of friends and be super social and join a bunch of clubs. But
Yeah.
I was the same way. Like I just did a handful of things and then came back to my dorm, and that was it.
Yeah. Because I feel like the people I met during freshman year, they stayed my friends, but like normally, even throughout high school, I feel like I had friends that were different years, you know?
Oh, yeah.
But for college, I mainly only had friends that were my year or because I graduated a year early that were a year above me.
Uh-huh.
But maybe that's also why that I feel like my social life for college was like less because I spent one less year there.
Mm-hmm.
But it just felt like I didn't have time to really form as many connections as I did in high school. Because I feel like now I interact with so many high school friends, but like for college friends, a lot of them are out of state, which is another reason. But I feel like I could have made more, like way more connections in college.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, do you feel like the connections you made in college, like the few that you did make, are as deep as your high school connections?
It's hard to say because I feel like my closest friends right now were mostly from high school and before high school, because I guess I've had more time to interact with them like throughout the years. And for college I spent 3 years there, and then after that, since I graduated, I didn't spend as much time with my friends after that.
Yeah, I feel like the difficult part in college that differs from high school is that like usually with high school you will consistently see the same handful of people literally like every day. But in college, at least the way that it was laid out for me, it was like Monday, Wednesday, Friday classes and then Tuesday, Thursday.
Right.
And you'll only see them for maybe like an hour or something like during that class, or like 45 minutes, and then that's it. Like you're not really gonna see them that much.
Yeah.
I feel like most of my close friends in college came from like lab classes, because you're more like interactive that way. But during lectures, I feel like there's no real like time to get to know the people around you. Yeah, so I feel like that might explain why like we're closer to high school people.
I also think it's because we're around like high school people more.
Yeah, that's true.
Like proximity is so like useful when you want to hang out with people they're around, so it's easier.
Yeah.
But I think the number one thing for college for me was just like wanting to graduate early, which I don't necessarily regret that, but I also would have changed the fact that I spent most of my time like studying and doing things that weren't with other people. I think if I could go back into my college years, I would definitely try my best to interact with new people as much as possible on maybe not a daily basis, but on a weekly basis. Because life these days after school, it's very difficult to interact with people. So if I could go back, I would just try to talk to as many people as possible, especially the people who have similar interests like music and dance and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's true. I feel like I would have that same thought if I didn't like barely scrape through college. Because like so I have thought about that. Have thought about like, oh, I wish I like kind of was more lax on my studying in pursuit of deeper relationships, but I honestly feel like I needed every second of my study. College was a very humbling experience for me. So ideally, if I was able to scrape by without losing my grades, and then yeah, that would have been dope.
Yeah. What was your major again?
It was
Related to biology.
biochemistry and cell biology.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I mean, I was just trying to do any sort of like pre-medical anything, and most programs required, I'm gonna expose myself, most programs required at least a 3.0 GPA, and I had like a 2.9 until like the very end of college.
Ooh.
Like I literally just scraped by.
that is scraping by.
So you know, I don't know if I can hang that much.
I mean, you're doing a difficult major, and UCSD is really big too. So
Uh-huh.
it makes sense that I feel like it's harder to meet people when the school is so big. For me,
Yeah.
because I went to Occidental, which is like a pretty small private school, like it felt like I could honestly meet every person in my year if I really wanted to, if I tried really
Oh,
hard.
really?
Yeah.
Wow. Wait, how big was your class size?
In a single class, it was usually around 30 people or
Oh,
less.
wow. That's really freaking nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why didn't you, Scott?
Yeah, exactly. That's why I'm here talking. This is why it's a regret. This is why I would change if I could go back.
Yeah, because our class sizes were like 250 or so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's another thing I feel like for a while I somewhat regretted as well, because I could either go into UCSD or Occidental. Those were my two big choices right after high school finished, or during senior year, and I chose Occidental primarily because this college counselor was telling me how I could get into Caltech with their 3-2 program or something like that. So that was my original plan in high school. I was like, I'm gonna go for Caltech, gonna really go hard into STEM, like, because I majored in physics and minored in computer science and math. And I think if I went to Caltech, I would have been some like either an electrical engineer or like a computer engineer or like software engineer or something like that. But instead, I just hated school so much that I graduated in 3 years and was just like, I'm done.
And you're like, peace out.
Yeah. Like instead of doing the 3-2 program, I just did 3 and then I'm done.
No 2, just 3.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? Like, if you could go back, would you have changed anything about your approach to school, or are you like content?
I think like I said a while back, I regretted that decision because I feel like I should have went to UCSD instead and probably just majored
Could have been with us.
Yeah. Yeah. It was also because there was this, like, at the time, this girl that I really liked, and she went to UCSD.
Oh my god. Did you not learn from high school?
Okay, this was different. This was like...
Okay. Okay.
Anyways, that was part of why I regretted it a lot. But then obviously after I like came to my senses, I was like, I wouldn't have met the friends that I met. I wouldn't be going to Singapore this year for my friend's wedding because she's a college friend.
Aww.
So like for me to regret that decision is like for me to sort of forsake all the friends I made in college, you know? But major wise and academically, I don't use physics at all. So I definitely would change at the very least what my primary study was. And I think it would be CS because at this moment, even though I minored in CS, I feel like I much preferred it over physics. But in Occidental at the time, they didn't really have a CS program.
Oh,
so going to SD would have been easier for that. But that's what I would change for sure, is just like major in computer science because it's a lot more useful in my opinion.
Yeah, I feel like it's much more marketable, and if you entered, because CS has been a huge like point of contention when I kind of reflect on my choices in the past. Because I vividly remember one of my roommates freshman year, when I was studying for a bio exam, she looked at me and she was like, you come off as more of a CS person to me. And I didn't think much of it, but literally looking back on it, like 8 years later, I'm like, oh dang, like I should have listened. I really reflect on that moment frequently because, oh no, I feel like it, of course, you know, there's a lot of competition and it's now super saturated, but if we entered the field like around the time when we graduated, like 4 or 5 years ago, it would have been a nice field to enter at the time.
Yeah. I mean, for me personally, I'm weird. I don't really think about work stuff that much. I'm more so thinking I could use code to create like, we both have a friend named Jeff. He's helped me create a program which basically automatically cuts to whichever camera is like multicam in Premiere Pro, and it cuts to the person who's talking automatically. And this does not exist on the internet right now, but he could create it because he knows how to code. And these are the things I feel like I would want to do, is essentially just make programs that help speed up whatever I want to do. And that's why I'm like super excited about AI and everything, because I'm like, the future looks very, very interesting because like there's so many things that can be done much faster and quicker. But it's mainly just to create the things I have in mind. That's why I would have wanted to do CS more. But I feel like I still can, you know? We can both still learn if we wanted to.
Yeah, that's true. There's like a lot of boot camps, and even just using like Codecademy, I'm sure you could pick up something useful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like yesterday I was actually using ChatGPT to help me create a program to transfer all my journals from Google Docs to Day One. I'm trying out
Day One.
I'm trying out a new app a new journaling app called Day One, because it seems like I could access journals from like 5 years ago faster that way. Like, you know how we ate at San Diego, like at the ramen place?
Oh.
And I was like looking for that journal entry and I couldn't quite find it quickly. I found it eventually.
I remember
that.
Mm-hmm.
But it took like 3 minutes or two to 3 minutes. But with Day One, I probably could have found it within a minute. So that's why I decided to do the change. But all the formatting is like weird. So I'm using the Python to basically change it, and I'm having ChatGPT help me do that. So it's been interesting, or yesterday was interesting where I was doing that. I was like, wow, I'm like starting to code again, and it's been like so long since I touched code.
Yeah, must be refreshing, especially knowing that AI is there to back you up. Like, what's stopping you, you know?
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's like talking about the future.
Just the 8s coming out, you know?
But the future obviously also deals with a lot of change. So, but going back to
the past.
To the past. Just to talk a bit more about specific things that we're interested in. What's sort of like an artistic endeavor that you wish you spent more time on in the past, or maybe you spend time on it now? And then like you can talk about things you wish you knew in the past.
Ooh, artistic endeavor.
Or I guess it doesn't have to be artistic. It could be any endeavor.
I would say, because like when I think of like endeavors, I feel like it means like creating something, like something creative. But yeah, I just want, or like looking back, I just wish I invested myself more in like nature and like taking opportunities to enjoy it. Like especially at UCSD, I could have surfed so much. Like I could have started surfing early, but I never took the opportunity. And now looking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, like there's so many good spots that I would just like go and like enjoy the beach, but I wouldn't like hop in.
Right.
So I feel like that's one thing, because I feel like
that's a big thing.
Yeah. I feel like I'm really discovering nature and stuff later when I don't have much time.
I think the lesson for that is sort of just looking at where you're at and utilizing the space around you. Obviously, if you're in the middle of nowhere, kind of sucks. but if you are, and I feel like I am, like I feel like we're close enough to LA, close enough to San Diego where we can utilize a lot. We're in SoCal. we have a lot of opportunity here, so like not to use it would be unfortunate.
Yeah.
So that's sort of still applies to us now, but
yeah, but I mean, you know, even back then, I feel like around college years, like you have a lot of time and you don't realize it.
Yeah.
And then now that we're like, you know, like older and we're working, it's like, oh shoot, like I should have done this stuff. But then again, we're not even that old.
Stop talking like an old person. Nah.
Yeah,
age is just a number.
Reflect on that. Yeah. I kind of think about that sometimes, how it's like, even though I joke around a lot that like, oh, we're getting old, I feel like this is me being retrospective about the present moment. But I feel like the biggest regret that we would have now is treating ourselves like we're old when we're actually not old yet.
Exactly.
Yeah, even though I joke around about it all the time.
That's why whenever we hang out and someone says that we're old, I always contest them.
I've noticed that.
Yeah, I can't let that seep into my mind, first of all, but like if these people are the people I'm hanging out with, I don't want them to think that either, you know?
Yeah, that's true. Sometimes like I've been noticing nowadays when people feel that way, I feel a little disappointed when people don't want to push themselves. Like further because
I
they're
see.
like, oh, like we're too old for A, B, C, D.
Yeah.
That's why I was
That's a
so
shame.
excited that like, yeah, like that we did something really childish and went to a trampoline park the other day.
It's
Yeah.
not childish. It was only childish because there were so many children there, okay? That's the only thing that
What
made
else
it childish.
defines childish?
I don't know. but
Exactly.
like there were like clearly things that the children could not do, like the wall running.
Because we're physically taller than them, yes.
Yeah, but yeah, I feel like we're still in our 20s, and it's like in terms of physical capabilities, I look at people like Jackie Chan or just stunts people in general. They're in their 30s, some in their 40s. Jackie was doing stunts in his 50s, and it's crazy. Like, if we're in our 20s and we're complaining about being old and we use it as an excuse not to do like difficult things, it doesn't make sense to me, you know?
Yeah. I mean that's what creates that big gap between people later on in life. It's like Jackie's the kind of person who like challenged himself when everyone else around him was like, oh, too old. And then that disparity became more obvious as he actually grew older. So yeah.
Yeah, but let's go back to the past a little bit.
Oh yeah.
we keep getting derailed.
What were we talking about?
Okay, I guess for me, an artistic endeavor, a big one would be like piano, and I think that one of the biggest things that I would do if I could go back, like I just back, I'm a kid and I'm learning piano for the first time. Well, firstly, I'd be a prodigy if I could just go back and retain all the memories of like all the pieces I can play.
Besides the prodigy part.
No, I'm joking. I would probably try to learn from multiple sources. If I could go back, and obviously that's kind of difficult because it's a lot easier to just stick with one teacher, but learning from multiple people would allow me to essentially learn their different methods, and different, I guess, piano teachers or just artists in general approach things in different ways. And if you can absorb knowledge from like different people and their different methods, it would make you a much more well-rounded artist. So that's a big thing, I feel. But that would definitely require a lot of money. So I don't know if I could actually do that.
Only if you're transported with your entire bank account. And then we can do.
If you're transported, you could just invest in like Bitcoin or something.
Invest in Bitcoin. Yeah, like that actually like sparked something that I recall like way back. This is like from elementary school. But it's not necessarily creative. Well, actually, it kind of is. Like venturing into like business, even if it's just like something really dumb, because I've always been very naturally business minded. Like in elementary school, I would take little like molds and then I'd fill them with glue. And then when the glue hardened, I would try and sell hardened glue to my classmates. And like I would like paint rocks and I would do like a bunch of little craft things. And then like during elementary school, I would pass around like a little order sheet and then have like my classmates like put in orders, and then I would like be like, oh, this is $1, this is $2, whatever.
Yeah.
I really wish I actually pursued that. Like not obviously not rocks and dried glue, but like the
business
like,
aspect.
I wish I
right?
expanded on that. Yeah. Because I don't know why I fell off of it. I think it was just like the novelty of the idea was so fun to me, but as a kid, if I pursued that I feel like that would have been really exciting, like growing up with that mentality. Yeah.
I think that if I could go back, what I would do different is try my best to pursue as many interests as possible. Because I feel like when I was younger, I spent a lot of time, like, I guess I can't take it back, but like I watched so much anime and I played so many video games. I guess it did kind of like shape me and make me like probably increase my hand-eye coordination and strategic sense in some ways. Play chess a lot. But I think at least for some of it, there were games that I obviously could have done without, like Candy Crush. And I actually never really, I know I did, but
Oh.
I was gonna say I never actually played Candy Crush on my own phone, but at some point I gave in. I would always just take my college friend's phone.
You old lady.
Whenever she was just studying or something, I'd be like, let me play Candy Crush. And I just played Candy Crush.
You're like an Asian dad. Taking Candy Crush.
And I would do that with my cousin's phone too. She had just a whole bunch of app games that I would just like grab from her phone when she was doing something, and I'd just play it.
Uh-huh.
But I would never download it on my own phone because I was like, I don't want to waste time doing this.
Even though you're wasting time on other people's phone.
Yeah. But it makes it like more limited in terms of how much I can access it.
Yeah, that's true. Of all the things that's your vice, it's Candy Crush.
It was really fun, actually.
Yeah, I feel like I do reflect on that every so often because like obviously games back then, like you don't care about like your old accounts, like you don't care about your accomplishments back then.
Yeah.
But when I've literally thought about it, and I was like, if I wasn't playing MapleStory when I was a little kid, like what would I be doing instead? And like how would it have contributed to my growth as an adult? But I think some things like Naruto and MapleStory are very like they're like irreplaceable, and I feel like it's become a huge cultural phenomenon, and so many people can relate to you because of your experience in that it's like, sure, it is a show and it is a game, but I feel like deep inside I don't regret how many hours I wasted. It's like a good waste.
I think I think I'm gonna.
I feel like
I
that's
agree with
completely
you.
opposite of your viewpoint.
I will agree with you partially, but
Uh-huh.
I will counter it by saying I think I could have done without all the hours on MapleStory, and perhaps like cut it into a 10th, and then I would just tell people, yeah, I played MapleStory too, But I actually did. I actually did play MapleStory like a lot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I got up to like level 50 something
Yeah,
back
50
then.
was a big deal back then.
Back then, it was crazy.
Yeah, that was like, wow. Because I only ever hit 30. And at that point, I was like, that's it. Like, I'm just going to hang out with people now. I'm not even going to train or anything.
Yeah, I trained all day.
All right, maybe you should have cut your MapleStory.
No, I'm exaggerating. I'm pretty sure I only got up to like level 40 something, but
you chopped off an entire 10 levels. You guys hear that? You heard that on audio, right?
but that was like so long ago, and I think ideally what would happen, again, you sort of need to be rich for this, but ideally what would happen is you hire someone, or you have someone like perhaps your parent that can guide you in either showing you here are the interests, or just asking you what are your interests, and then having the resources to be able to provide you with a teacher or a resource on how to pursue that interest, or at least get started with it, and perhaps someone who can help structure your day or just like your whole life, I guess.
Yeah, like just lead you in a good direction.
Yeah.
But like channel your passions.
Yeah. I think that is what's really missing from a lot of time when I was younger, is just guidance, I feel. I don't know exactly how you would achieve that though, because
like guiding a kid?
Yeah, say if you were a kid right now without the knowledge that we have, how would you achieve essentially what I just described? I guess because I feel like you wouldn't have the discipline to do so. You would need someone else to structure it for you.
Yeah, because I think our opinion towards guidance at a young age is reflective of our maturity and experience in life, because on one hand, a lot of people look back on their past and they reflect on the the guidance that their parents, I don't want to say impose because that has a negative connotation, but the guidance that their parents offered them when they were young, and they look back on it and they think of it as oppressive, which it can be at times. But for other kids who are like not confident enough, don't know, like what we're saying, like don't know how to channel their passion or their ideas, I think that, yeah, they can't generate guidance on their own because it's like they don't know the possibilities. Like they don't know the different channels they could take.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's why it's so important to have like at least someone older. It doesn't have to be a parent, but you know, just someone older to show them options and encourage them towards the ones that seem most compatible for them.
Yeah. One thing I realized as I'm older is that having that teacher or guidance from a young age is so important because like I remember gymnastics lessons when I took it like 3 years ago, right? And the kids that were there were amazing. Like there were so many kids that could just do so many things that I wanted to do. But they started at a young age and they had lessons since they were kids. I mean, like they are still kids, but but with that guidance, they were able to excel so far so quickly versus
that's true.
someone like me where I spent most of my time trying to do it on my own. And I think that's something I would definitely change is all the interests I had with breakdance, with gymnastics, and even for piano, I stopped taking lessons at a certain point in high school. I think having a teacher, having a master, having someone to guide you is probably the number one thing that I feel that I would do differently if I could go back. Is to just like again, you kind of need resources for this, but but just have like a lot of teachers and masters that really know the stuff that you want to know and have them guide you.
Yeah. I feel like that really shows the difference between the two of us as kids. Because for you, it seems like you had a bunch of interests and you just needed the right resources to like hone your skills and like grow them. But for me, I did not have enough interests or like I had very frivolous interests. So maybe this will help people listening in who are from the opposite side of the spectrum because all my interests were really dumb, like collecting bugs or like
That's
or like
not
just
dumb.
like hanging out with friends in high school.
You're calling a whole field of study of scientists dumb, Amy.
I can say I used to major in bio. But like, yeah, I feel like for people who didn't have like specific interests that they wanted to build on, like they were just kind of floating through life, I really appreciate when my parents would force me into stuff. Because with my personality back then, there was no other way that I would challenge myself. So I feel like that's another side of like a different form of guidance, like not a specific guidance for a specific skill, but just guidance in sort of in the sense of like challenging a child, like based on obviously like what they can handle. Because for me, I thought I couldn't handle anything until my parents forced me into stuff. Like they forced me into piano, swimming, and tap dancing at one point. Yeah, and there was no other way I would have known I liked or did not like stuff if they didn't force me into it.
I see. Yeah, so you were an unruly kid.
Yeah, I was
just
very
wanted
aloof.
to play MapleStory all the time.
Yeah, I just wanted to collect bugs and play MapleStory.
I have a new image of you now.
I'm different now. I'm different, I swear.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just goes to show how different you can turn out later on in life, too.
Yeah. And I think that what I said about my advice still applies now. And I'm going to try to apply it this year, especially for music interests. So I'm going to try to perhaps take some drum lessons and also vocal lessons and maybe some sort of string instrument, like maybe guitar or something.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think I got encouraged from my friend from Singapore. She just told me how she started taking vocal lessons again, and she was like, "Oh yeah, just find a teacher." And I'm like, "You're right. Just look it up online.
Just like do it."
But I think as someone who wants to get more into music production and stuff, it would be wise for me to try to learn more about different instruments rather than just stick with the piano.
I think that's a great idea. If you do go for vocal lessons, let me know.
Sure. But yeah, it's even as an adult, you can definitely apply that lesson of trying to find guidance. And I think other than the time aspect, I feel like it's easier in terms of resources because, you know, you work, you have money, you have income, you can hire a teacher maybe once or twice a week and just do whatever they ask you to do and really try to improve.
Yeah, I feel like that ties into what we were talking about earlier too, of like don't, or like, you know, like advice just going into the new year for ourselves. Like, don't treat ourselves as like too old to do this or that.
Yeah.
And like learn from our younger selves of like, for me, it would be challenging myself like outside of what I would normally want to do. And then for you, like what you just said, like using your resources as an adult to like expand on what you already know.
Yeah, because I feel like it's also hard to do that sometimes because like if you come from a place where you're not used to it, like you come from like a very self-taught mindset, right? It gets kind of dangerous and difficult to get out of it because you're always used to just learning on your own. But I feel like if you have a really good teacher, you find a really good teacher, you can accelerate and be so much better. But again, that's just from my observation.
Yeah.
I just got
I think that's
jealous of
definitely
those.
true.
Yeah, I got jealous of those gymnastic kids, man. That's what happened. Like...
Scarred for life from those gymnastics kids.
No, I had my fun. I did my flips.
You had your flips. I feel like that's the thing too, is like looking at people who are exceptionally better than you and not feeling discouraged, but rather feeling like, okay, like, you know, like, I'm gonna get to it too, you know? Yeah, like that's how I feel at the gym a lot when I see really fit people who can move a lot of weight, and I'm like, wow, like how could I ever get to that?
Oh, that's good, and they're not kids too, so
yeah, those like kids. Yeah.
All right, well, I feel like we've definitely gone on a lot of tangents in this one. But
this is the last you'll ever see of me.
No, but I enjoyed the discussion a lot. I think sort of the prompt of us looking back on what we would have changed definitely helps us look at right now and what we would change right now as well, because it's fun to look back in the past and be like, oh, I would have changed this, would have changed that, or even like I would have bought Bitcoin or something like that and been rich. But it's not very useful unless you apply like what you're talking about to right now. And that to me was sort of the whole theme of the discussion. Yeah, so thank you so much for coming on. I feel like I've gained more insight on you, and also
that I'm lazy and aloof.
No, that's not what I meant. I just meant as a friend, you know, like it's cool to learn about some of the history from your past, and just also insight in terms of like how other people might operate instead of just like my own self, my own kid version, you know. So getting another perspective was definitely useful. I'm glad. Yeah, so thank you for coming on. Yeah, thanks for having me. That was really fun. I was actually nervous at first, but I was chilling now. Nice. All right, so if you guys enjoyed the discussion, be sure to give it a like and follow. Catch you guys in the next one.